why don't you get the audience a bit of an intro and background of you and what you do?
Okay. Again, my name is Parker Brown. I am the host of the WATCHWELL podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all the places that you can consume podcast content. I also am the owner of VindicatedProductions.com, where we do video production and content creation, social media management, that kind of stuff. I've got a wife and 3 kids. 2 are born. 1 is due in July.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
So,
And I'm a self-proclaimed grill master.
oh, I don't know if we'll get to see any of that in the podcast, but
Probably not, man. But it's a fun time for sure. Out on the back porch, hanging out, cooking food for people. It's fun.
yeah, definitely. So, with a lot of movie buffs, you really can't ask what their favorite movie is. But I'm going to ask you anyways. What is your favorite movie and why?
Ooh. Oh man, that one's always so tough. I would say I'm a big Forrest Gump fan.
Mhm.
And I really like I recently rewatched How to Train Your Dragon. So if we're going for animated films, I think that was a really good one.
Yeah.
And then if we are going to do like more of a war movie, I'd probably have to go with 13 Hours, Secret Soldiers of Benghazi.
13 Hours is great.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. Although,
It's so hard to pick, man. I mean, there's so many great movies out there.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan, and I don't know. What's yours? Do you have one?
Oh man, I don't know. I like a lot of serious movies, and I am a Tom Cruise fan, so
Okay.
maybe somewhere around there. Yeah.
You like the Mission Impossibles?
Yeah.
Big fan of those. What do you think of the last one coming out here in the next within the next year or
It's
so?
gonna be the last one.
Yeah, if it's gonna be the last one, for sure.
The last one. No, it looks interesting. I know as the time of recording this, they released a official trailer for it. It looked pretty good, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. How old is he now? Is he in his 60s?
I don't know. He's really old.
Yeah, and he's still jumping off of buildings and stuff. I hope I'm able to do that when I'm 60.
Yeah. Seems to be a lot of plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery, yeah, and a lot of money. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Or the live action How to Train Your Dragon movie that's coming out looks spectacular.
Yeah, it actually looks like a shot-for-shot remake.
Well, I mean, did you see there's a side-by-side of Astrid? Yeah, I saw it. Hilarious.
It's so funny.
I saw the teaser and I was like, oh, this actually looks good, despite the fact that they didn't show Astrid yet.
Yeah. Well, really, it's interesting when you get into like computer graphics and stuff like that. Can you really call, like, the majority of the movie is going to be computer generated? So can you really call it a live action remake? Because it's not real. It's not like real dragons.
Yeah. Like, except with real people and
it's the same thing. It's just with real people instead of animated people.
Yeah, no,
Funny.
definitely.
Do you know that 60% of consumers avoid brands with unattractive logos, even if they have good reviews? Well, Resurrection Design Co. helps kingdom-minded businesses fix that problem with award-winning brand and web design. And right now, they are offering a free, I repeat, free website design or redesign to the first 2 podcast listeners who sign up for a brand identity package. When signing up for a brand identity package, Resurrection will help you design your brand's visual and verbal identity so that you attract your ideal customers, differentiate yourself from your competitors, and strengthen your credibility in the market. Now, this offer is only valid for the first 2 people who sign up this month, so don't wait to visit resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner to claim it. The link is also in the description. RDC has a 100% client satisfaction and a 5 out of 5 Google rating. So don't wait to snag this deal. Head to resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner or visit the link in the description.
So recently on one of your podcasts, you mentioned that the goal of the WATCHWELL podcast was to kind of take movies and kind of dissect them with a Christian view lens and everything. So for someone that doesn't know what the WATCHWELL podcast is and who's new to it, what exactly is the goal for it and how did it start?
Okay, well, it started, let's see, this was 3 years ago, I think now, and, I was talking to my cousin, so for those who will watch or have watched the podcast on YouTube, they will meet my cousin, he's my co-host. We were talking on the phone, and I was, like, kinda getting into the podcast thing, and I was like, "You know, I really wanna start a podcast, but I don't really know what I wanna talk about. I know I wanna talk about something, and, we always talked about movies growing up, and come to find out, he actually sent me a text message, and he was like, "Hey, I don't know if this is something you'd be interested in, but this is at least, a good starting point." And it was, a Word document, he typed it out on, like, a Word document, and it was called WATCHWELL. And it was his very first blog post for something that he was going to call WATCHWELL, and it was on the movie Fences with Denzel Washington. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that movie.
Mm.
It's a really, really heavy movie. It's really good though. And I texted him back immediately, and I was like, "This is the podcast. Like, this is what we're doing. This is awesome. This is such a great idea." So, long story short, it was supposed to be a blog when he was in college, never got started. And then later, he actually implemented the idea in his youth group when he was in charge of their church's youth group
Mm.
with a bunch of the high school kids. They would come over to his house and they would watch a movie, and then they would engage with the movie, ask questions, and do kind of what we do on the podcast, essentially.
Mhm.
And he saw a lot of good results from that. A lot of people grew in their faith. A lot of people started to connect the dots between life and the movie and the Bible and all that kind of stuff. So that's essentially a quick summation of how it all started.
Mhm.
Can you remind me your other question?
So what exactly is the goal of the WATCHWELL podcast?
So we navigate our lives watching a lot of content, YouTube and social media, movies, and it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of watching it lazily,
Mhm.
right? So we just kind of death scroll. We watch a movie and we don't really think critically about what the messaging is, and we don't actually, a lot of the times we miss the narrative and what it's built upon, like what the actual story is built upon in terms of the narrative
Mhm.
and the roots of those narratives. And then we miss the manipulation of that in the messaging. So our goal is to just get people to start with the movie, acknowledge the narrative, that it comes from God, it comes from the Bible, the foundation of our faith, in order to support the message, which can be deceiving, distorted, or true. And then we just kind of call out what we see, and we observe what Hollywood steals, because it's our thing, right? It's,
Yeah.
if you're a Christian and you believe in scripture, you believe in the Bible, there's, a narrative, it has to be built upon fundamental eternal truths. And then the movie will craft a story based off of, that supporting narrative that must exist eternally, whether it's love or morality, what have you. And then their story will directly refute that narrative. And that's what we try to dig out.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess let's put out a scenario here, because you say that, every every story and every movie, in a way, we have that there's, eternal truths in that, and everything's created by God. But then there's some movies where people are like, "Well, I'm not gonna watch that," and you're like, "Well, it's, people distort things, but we're gonna take what we can from that." So,
Mhm.
like, for example, I have a friend who is non-Christian, but they love the movie Anora, and it's like 300 plus F words, a bunch of
Okay.
grotesque content. It won awards and everything.
Yeah. And I saw that it won a lot of awards at the Oscars, but I haven't seen the movie yet.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it either because of just the amount of filth that's in it.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, so how would you go about explaining to someone there where it's like, this movie has eternal truths, and like, even though this movie is full of foul content,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah, so I would say you really have to search your convictions on what you watch.
Mhm.
So it's not our idea is not an endorsement to watch everything.
Yeah.
But if you are going to watch something, then at least watch it well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
So
definitely.
if you're convicted to watch, I mean, there are so many different movies. There's so many, sexual promiscuity, all this stuff. Like there are definitely things that you need to be guarded against, and that's gonna vary person to person. Some people are going to be, heavily convicted and they're not going to watch certain things. Other people are going to be less convicted and able to watch certain things. Obviously, we could all look at something, super extreme and all agree like that's a no-go, like that one's off limits, right?
Yeah.
But it would be hard for me to, examine a movie that I haven't seen in terms of, the movie that you brought up, Anora. I imagine it would be a little difficult to watch. From the little I know, I think isn't it about a prostitute?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, the idea that, sex workers, because I think I heard her speech at the Oscars, and she seemed like she was speaking very positively about sex work, and obviously as Christians, we would be totally against that, right? Because sex is, reserved for marriage. It's a very spiritual thing between one man, one woman, in marriage, one man, one wife, and that's that's how God designed us to enjoy that, right? So, um, I would be interested to watch that movie again. Like I said, I haven't seen it, but it would be interesting to see the dynamic of if she was taken advantage of in some way, shape, or form. Like the eternal truth would be something along the lines of, sex is sacred, but then during the movie, sex work is okay because sex is just transactional. It's just material. It's just, it's nothing more than just who you choose. You can throw it away. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's kind of the idea of what we're pointing out. And again, I don't know if that's true about the movie, but if I'm extrapolating or assuming or projecting, I guess probably see or predict it going that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like even, some movies, it's like they're not enjoyable to watch, but they're important. It's like the movie Taken. It's not an enjoyable movie that you just watch. So we're going to watch a family movie night tonight. No, like it's not one of those movies, but it's important because it paints the picture of that these things are bad and we got to put a stop to this. And it's saying, look at this. Like we're not even showing you the full picture. And this is already bad enough. Yeah. So I guess we have these different movies, and maybe back in when like John Wayne was making movies and Jimmy Stewart and everything, movies were pretty good back then. They had these good morals and everything. Even if people weren't necessarily Christians, they still had good morals. There wasn't maybe so much profane, grotesque stuff in them. And nowadays, we've got these different movies that are being released, and it's just terrible. It's storyline, a bunch of content in them. So where exactly do you think this vibe shift in movies came from? And
Ooh,
when did it
that's a
happen?
tough one. I don't know if I don't know if I know. I don't know if I'd be able to answer like a specific point. I know that when I was in high school, it was different even then. So you're going way back to like John Wayne, but I remember just being thrilled to go to the movie theater in high school and watch a movie. you know? And nowadays, you turn on Netflix, you turn on Hulu, whatever streaming platform, right? And you could probably flip through movies for an hour and not find anything like that you would want to watch, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to default back to the things that you always enjoy. And then you get bored, and it's kind of, that it's just unfortunate. But I remember, I mean, when I was in high school, we would go to the movie theater 2-3 times a weekend, sometimes. And we just loved watching movies. We loved hanging out at the theater, and then obviously the conversations that like after. I remember going to The Dark Knight when it came out, Inception, really the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s were even different. And they were like, those movies were awesome. And then somewhere around I don't know. I'm sure somebody that it could follow the chronology of film better than me, but I even think that the last because in 2020 with COVID, nobody went to the movie theater.
Yeah. And it seems to
So
have never recovered since then.
right. I think there may be a slow drip of a recovery. I think it would be fun to make movie theaters great again, but yeah, I couldn't narrow maybe within the last 5 years it's really seen a dip, 10 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, so we see the different people that obviously, they're not trying to promote Christianity, and they're not trying to promote these good moral stories and everything. So they're making all these bad content and everything. But from what you've seen, as you've seen these different movies and from experience, and you've seen these different things in the world, why do you think that all of this, bad, filthy content has been normalized? Because there used to be these, R-rated movies, and it's like you can't go, and now like 17-year-old teenagers are going to do this
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
And even it used to be, I remember my dad was saying when he was a kid, if it was like, you know, these there was these magazines with nudity in them and everything, and it's like you had to go hunting for those.
Mm-hmm.
And now you don't have to. Like, it's everywhere. Even George Farmer, Candace Owens' husband, he was like, I'm not on social media because it's just everywhere. Oh, you see this picture of this purse, and this ad for this purse, and it's like, oh, you don't think about it, but then the person in the background is scantily dressed or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think, from what all you've seen, why do you think all of this stuff has been normalized to where we used to have to go, if we wanted to do or see these things, we had to go hunt for them, but now it's everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, people are sinful. I mean, that's really probably the root of it, right?
Yeah.
Marketing. It's about being quick. It's about being, blanking on the word. It's about being, exclamatory, for lack of a better word, where it's like right up in your face, like the headline culture where you want to grab attention because people are scrolling or people are flipping through, magazines at the gas station or whatever. I don't know who buys magazines anymore, but
Yeah.
but anyway, like you've got to grab attention, and that and sex sells, because it preys on it takes advantage of the sinful nature of man. And so it's a cheap way to grab attention. So I think that really is the root of, the issue. I don't know if that fully answers your question.
No, yeah,
though.
definitely. So you say that if you're going to watch something, watch well, but where should we draw that line? Because some things we want to watch to gain something from it. So maybe a podcast or something, but then even those to a certain extent can be too much. There's some people that are just, all they do is listen to podcasts, and you can tell they're influenced by that. And so where should we draw the line of, hey, we're watching too much, and hey, this is for entertainment, but this is for, educational purposes, and therefore we should really study this?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to like why you're choosing to do something. If you're on your phone all the time, as men, if we're neglecting our families, our children, our wives, then now you're kind of getting into more of like an addiction,
Mhm.
and obviously, that's not good. So I really think you just have to be honest with yourself, with your own convictions and your and balance within your life, so that you're well-rounded, that you're honoring Christ, you're honoring your responsibilities, and you're growing with consuming all different types of content, and then also knowing when to put it down, when to not watch the next movie, or hey, maybe I shouldn't watch that, maybe maybe it's probably time to put my phone down, spend some time with my kids because I don't want to neglect them either. So maybe in terms of a younger person who's still in school, maybe I need to put my phone down and go do my homework, or you just you know it's more, I think it's more common sense than people realize, but again, it's addicting. It can be, at least, and you just have to be honest with yourself for that line, because that line's gonna be different for a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
No, yeah,
What are your thoughts on that one?
I definitely think it is situational, and I mean, it can be difficult because there's some people that their job is literally to do social media stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and so I mean, I had a podcast interview a couple days ago, and it was with the I don't know if you know who Nick DiGiovanni is. Um,
No.
so like over 20 million subscribers on YouTube, massive food channel and everything. And I interviewed his manager, and it's like his job is literally to manage this. And so he's on his phone, his computer all day, every day. And so it's like, I definitely do think it's situational because there's some people where they're a construction worker or something, but then there's some people where their job is literally to manage social media, learn the platform, study the analytics and all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely do think it's situational. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really just work in general, like you can think about it and not be present. You can have it and not be present. So it really just is examining yourself and taking a look in the mirror. Because you may not have social media, you may be a construction worker, but you might be thinking of the blueprints, or you might be thinking, oh, what do I need to do next? Or the stress related to, how to pour a foundation, or, whatever it may be within your job description, that you've got to get done. And even that could pull you away. So you've really got to live a balanced life, and compartmentalize your responsibilities and be totally present, as best you can.
Yeah. And so jumping back a bit to something you said earlier is, years ago, people loved going to the movie theaters. Everything was great, go and see the new movie that come out on the weekend, grab the popcorn, grab a drink, whatever that may be. And then 2020 kind of hit and everything. And now not many people go to the cinema because there's these different streaming platforms, but then prices are way, way up. Like you buy tickets for like $12 a piece, and then popcorn for like another $30 a piece. And so how can we regain this love for the movie theater and bring people back to it?
That's a tough one. I don't know, because you're competing with streaming services. So like they can beam it right to your house. You can go to the dollar store and you can buy cheap candy, or you can make dinner and have a full-blown
People
steak
do that.
potato meal while you just, but then you'll notice that the rental fees on these streaming movies are expensive when they're new releases. They're like $20-$30. So, you're gonna, I don't know. It really just comes down to if you love going to the movie theater and you do it for the experience, whether it's a date night or something like that. But I don't know how I don't really know how we regain that. I think it just comes down to because I think certain movies are better in the theaters, because I really think it just depends on the movie. Because you have movies that come out and they're like big blockbuster type movies. You want to see it on a big screen, or even movies that go to like the IMAX.
Yeah.
And there are certain type, like the Mission Impossible movie. Like I'm definitely gonna go see that at the movie theater. I want the giant screen. I want the sub bass, and I want to feel like I'm part of the Mission Impossible team, right?
Yeah.
But then there's those, like Top Gun was a big one. There's been a few recently, but they are kind of few and far between. So you just have to. We've got to watch movies well. We got to demand better movies. I really think that's the way forward.
Yeah.
Like whether you're a critic or you create content, or we got to find a way to not say bad movies are good, and maybe vote with our dollar a little better to and then there's also the other side of that too, where you guys have you talked to Marcus Pittman at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a cool thing going on with Lore TV where the content actually wins. So you're not paying these big production houses where you have no real say in what they produce. You just pay them your money and then they make what they make.
Yeah.
He's got a really cool idea where, the funding goes to the creator and then the audience gets to vote with their dollar on the content, and then that's what wins. So I think we're gonna see, stuff like that pop up where it's not gonna be, big cinema, big publishing houses, big production houses. I think it's gonna be, it's gonna fragment, and it's gonna be smaller micro production companies that produce the content that people want to see, and then it'll give the bigger dogs a run for their money. And then that's not even talking about AI. When we get AI, here in the next couple of years. So, I don't know if you've do you follow Matt Walsh at all?
Yeah.
Have you seen the I'm gonna blank on the guy's name, but he's the lead role in the new Shazam movie.
Oh, the Zachary Levi?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Zachary Levi. They did a they had like a conversation interview type thing, and they talked about AI and their predictions of what it was going to be like, and it was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
So we should definitely check that out.
I remember you doing a review of that, actually.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think that maybe these indie kind of independent films will take over the cinema, or the cinemas will just eventually die out and streaming will become the new thing?
I'm not sure. I go back and forth. I go back and forth on that one because there is still people like me who like going to the movie theater. But then there are also people like me when you have young family where you can't make it to the movie theater, and you have to choose between, $30, $40 for a babysitter on top of, the $100 it's going to cost to go to the movie theater, or you can just put the kids to bed and order pizza and, $20 will buy the movie, So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's definitely been hit or miss recently. Some movies everyone thought this movie was going to perform super well, and then it didn't. So I think like the two big ones right now that performed the best was like A Complete Unknown, I heard performed really well. And then the Minecraft movie actually has been performing super duper well recently.
Yeah.
Over this past weekend. And it's like,
yeah, I actually did. If it's okay to shout out another channel, I actually went on Reforming Nerdum.
I have not heard of that one. Yeah,
it's another podcast. They're more about like nerd culture and video games and movies and all kinds of stuff. So we kind of cross pollinate a little bit, but not the exact same way. And we had a blast, man. You should check them out. They're a bunch of cool guys. And we did we predicted Rotten Tomato scores. And so we did really, really bad on some of them, and we did decent okay on some of the other ones. But it was a really fun episode.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'll have to check that out. But so it's these different things, and even I think it was Jeremy Johns, maybe that's how you pronounce his name, but he released a review of the new Snow White movie, and everyone in the comment section was like, I think everyone was more excited for your review than the actual movie itself.
Yeah, he pulls good numbers too. He's been around.
Yeah, 1.4 on IMDb or whatever.
Yeah. Snow White. That's, man. I haven't seen it yet. I gotta find a way to find time to watch that one. But
find a way to
do a review and
to kind of justify spending these 2 hours to watch. Yeah. So maybe what has been, a good movie that you've seen recently that came out recently, and what was maybe one of the, as you mentioned, eternal truths that you pulled from that movie? Because I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have seen your review of Flight Risk, which I watched the movie and
What a terrible movie.
it was so bad.
It was really bad. Did you see the movie?
Yeah, at first I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, never mind."
It was really bad, man.
Yeah.
It was so bad. Here, I'm gonna pull up my list here. Sorry. I'm gonna
Yeah. No, it's like, why could Mel Gibson could have done so much better? Mark Wahlberg.
okay, so I would say the two that come to mind are Wicked and The Wild Robot. And I would say that I enjoyed both of those movies. Wicked's interesting because it starts off with a quote, and I'm trying to remember here. So, people down in the comments don't, be nice. But it starts off where, the Wicked Witch is dead, and it's about what's the quote? The quote is are you born wicked, or is wicked like thrusted upon you, or something along those lines? And so you kind of like our idea of what we do is when we hear something like that, they're starting with a premise of something being wicked, right? Are we born wicked? And I mean, as Christians, we can go a whole bunch of different places with that quote, right? You can go to, Romans 1, Romans chapter 3, so are we born wicked, or is wickedness, kind of thrusted upon us? And then the entire movie is about how the Wicked Witch of the West is not wicked, and everyone is just saying that she's wicked. And the true evil villain of the film is obviously Oz. If you've seen The Wizard of Oz, you know that he's a fraud. And they're just using people to access this magical book that's in the film called the Grimoire. So it really kind of pulls out like a subjective form of morality, right? Where is what we say and do, is that what's wicked just because we say and do it? Or who decides what's wicked? Or is it something outside of us that is the standard for what is wicked? So that's kind of our idea of watching a movie, is watching it well, watching it actively, critically thinking, and stuff like that. So I hope that maybe that helps.
Oh, definitely. Because I mean, I never saw Wicked, but I saw the reviews and everything. I was like, oh, this movie looks terrible. But now that you say that, I'm like, I didn't expect that to come from that movie.
Yeah, and then here's another one. This one's relatively recent. But Wonka with Timothée Chalamet. If you watch that movie and the history of the Protestant Reformation, where Martin Luther, his 95 Thesis, and the Catholic Church and selling of indulgences and all these things, right? Well, if you go back and watch Wonka, and it's kind of like a candied version of the Reformation, because you have the Catholic Church, or whatever church, it looks Catholic. You have the Roman Catholic Church, who is in charge of the village or whatever, right? And they're in bed with the chocolatiers. Okay? And they've got this deal where all of the pure chocolate is hidden like under the Catholic Church, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's something like that. It's the chocolatiers are being paid by the priests in the church to keep all of the good chocolate, but then they're giving all of the watered down chocolate to the lay people of the town. And then Willy Wonka comes in, and the very first song is "You've Never Tasted Chocolate Like This." And then the entire movie is about him undoing the fraud and the hiding of the good chocolate. And he gives it back, like essentially gives it back to the people. So there's a lot of similarities there with some of the Protestant Reformation and Wonka. It's actually kind of funny. Once I was watching it, and once I had that thought, I was like, oh, I can't unsee it now. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got these different movies, and some of them have good ideas, and even like you said, Wicked and Wonka, how there's kind of these ideas planted inside where it's like, that's interesting. I didn't expect that to come from that. So do you think maybe Hollywood will one day be saved or just completely burned to the ground?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I think the promises of Scripture are true. I think the Great Commission is, we were commanded to go and make disciples of all nations, and I think that Christ can save. So I would leave the eschatology to someone smarter than me, but I do think that we can make a difference if we stay faithful and we watch well. I would say that.
Yeah. So you're also the owner of Vindicated Productions.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly is Vindicated Productions, and what do you do there?
So we do podcast editing, we do video editing, we do video production, all kinds of stuff like that. Product placement videos, and stuff like that. Yeah. So all the video editing and stuff is all remote. And we, if you have a podcast, you pay the monthly fee, you upload it to the Google Drive, I download it, edit it, send it back to you, and yeah, it relieves the burden of creating content. It frees you up to make more content. If you guys have ads, and you can run extra episodes and sell more ads because you have more ad slots, you can create more episodes for more ad slots. Then that's kind of the value there. So yeah, love videos, love podcasting, love all of it. So
Yeah.
vindicatedproductions.com.
Yeah. So did you always envision that you would start a podcast and a video production company?
Nope.
So when did that idea come into your head?
It was roughly around the same time, a little bit before the podcast started. So I mean, if people really wanted to know, they could look at when our YouTube channel started. It was something around then, and for WATCHWELL, and I started off doing weddings, so filming weddings and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just something that I enjoyed doing and started a business, and yeah, love it, having a great time.
That's awesome. So as someone who's maybe looking to start a podcast or something like that, who do you think should start a podcast, and what is some of the best pieces of advice you could give to that person?
Well, who do I think should start a podcast? I would say anybody that wants to. I think you should start a podcast. But I would caution them to say that it's not easy, and you're going to put way more work in than you are going to receive like investment back for a very long time. So if you know that going in and you're okay with it, and you've got a message to tell the world, and you've got a really cool idea, if you like it, there's probably, a lot of people out there in the world that will like it too. So I would tell you, like, do it, man. Like, start the YouTube channel, start the podcast, put your message out there, and don't wait. Like, don't wait until you've got a certain, skill level. Just start it. Even if it's bad, just start it. You'll learn along the way, especially if you have fun with it, like we do on the WATCHWELL podcast. There's always going to be bumps in the road, and stuff that's hard, and trying to find guests and stuff. I would say I would just say do it, go for it. And then as far as advice that I would give them, I would say get on social media and create relationships. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, obviously wisely. Don't be dumb, giving out your social security number or anything like that. I would say, leverage Twitter, leverage Instagram, and try to get in touch with people. And if people say no, rejection's part of the game. And then ultimately come back to your message, because that's what's going to allow you to do it for a really long time. Don't do it for money. Don't do it for social clout or anything like that. Do it because you have a really good message and you feel like you can give value to other people. If you can stick with that, then you'll never want to stop doing it. And then if you benefit other people's lives, or whether it's with entertainment or educating or whatever, then all the success and other stuff will come. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So you mentioned, connecting with people, asking for interviews. Do you enjoy more interviewing people, or do you enjoy just more, talking about a movie?
They're different. I like them both. They're different. I'm a social person, and I love people, and I like creating relationships and meeting new people. So I would say that that's probably, gun to my head, that's what I would love. But I also love being funny and creating videos by myself, doing like a movie reaction or something. I think it's fun to, just be creative and try to make people laugh, and yeah, I don't know, just affect people in that way. So they're different. It's hard to pick, but I would probably say the people aspect of it is probably my favorite.
Yeah. And so as you're this, Christian movie buff, influences people by thinking differently about movies, what do you think are some of the biggest issues with Christian films nowadays?
They all are terrible.
That worries.
They're just bad. Have you seen I think the best one I've seen, which is still bad, the best one I've seen is probably Nefarious. Have you seen that one?
Oh, it's so good.
So it's good up until the very last scene, and then it ruins the entire thing. I think the part of what Christians do, and I'm using Christians as a broad term. I don't want to get into the weeds on the terminology, but just Christian films in general are they do too much, and they are they just shove the messaging down your throat instead of letting the film and story breathe. Like, we need to get better at storytelling, and I'm sure that there's a lot of indie or low budget films that are amazing Christian films. But yeah, just the blockbuster stereotypical, Kendrick brother type. I might get in trouble for saying that, but
Yeah.
I would just say Christian movies in general, they're just bad. Like for example, Nefarious, I didn't like the very end. I thought if a Christopher Nolan, or James Cameron or somebody like that filmed that, directed that movie, it would have stopped as soon as the screen went black there at the end. He hears the voice in his head, and then he goes to shoot himself, the gun clicks, the screen goes black, and that would have been the end of the movie, and it would have been a phenomenal movie. But no, they have to go in and at the end have to do the book tour and the Glenn Beck, and and then the stereotypical thing at the end where the demon's out at the dumpster and talks to it. It just pulls me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
No,
up until that point, I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I mean, I think, if they stopped after the electric chair, that would have been good.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
did you hear that they're working on a second one now?
Oh, it's not shocking. I mean, it was a big, I would say it was a success.
Yeah.
But I just, and then, there's just so much with that movie that I could talk about. I just want it to be more, there's a reason why, Christopher Nolan is known for what he does in directing films. There's a reason why James Cameron is known for, directing films. It's because they're the best at it. And we need to just get better at telling stories.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah. And I mean, so one thing
It also gets, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. It also gets manipulative too, right? So you can start manipulating Christian audiences as long as you have, certain words in the script, or, Christians tend to be manipulated by like feelings and emotion, because like what we believe is serious and it's like a real thing. It's just, I don't like it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so, I mean, like, I recently had a podcast interview with, I don't know if you know who Pastor Berkshade is. He's a old school CRAC pastor. And he argued that, I had a viewer ask a question where, do you think the Passion of the Christ is a violation of the second commandment?
Mm-hmm.
And he said no, because, the way he and a bunch of other people have it is that you can make pictures of Jesus, but you can't bow down to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which at first I was like, huh? Because for a while I had thought differently about that. But now I've been like rethinking that and everything. And so it's even like the Chosen, it just like butchers a bunch of stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of Dallas Jenkins. I would love to chat with him and sit down with him. Like that'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I mean, you mentioned how Christians feel like they are just like you feel they're shoving the message down throat, where at the same time leftists are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Christians are like, leftists are shoving this message down your throat. Therefore, we need to shove the opposite message to counteract that first
Well,
message.
I think maybe, but if you look at the difference between something like there's a movie that we're going to be doing a review on with Joshua Hames here coming up, and it's called The Forge. Okay, or even people know like Courageous. They know Facing the Giants. They know what's the other one? Like Flywheel. They just this the other what is it? War Room. These other Christian movies. If you compare that to something more like Nefarious, right? There's definitely a difference in the story. One is very much you believe in God and everything goes right. You know what I mean? It's and I'm not even saying like having like showing prayer on is bad. I'm not trying to nitpick, because obviously I would say that those things are great. But there's a difference when you compare those two types of movies, and one is just better at the story. It's got better acting. It's just an excellence thing, and I think that I don't know. I just think that something like The Chosen. I know we were talking about The Passion and Chosen a little bit. I just wanted to clarify that it's not the Christian essence that I have an issue with, or that the Christian message shouldn't be shared. Obviously, it should be. I'm just saying that you can share the Christian message in a film that complements the story, or even kind of like what we say, every movie is a Christian movie because it starts with that narrative. Even in unbelief, you can't escape the realities of the Christian faith, that the realities of God that created the universe. So even if you're an unbeliever, you're still living in God's universe. You just don't acknowledge it. So in order for a story to happen, it's got to have order, and it's got to have design behind it. It's got to have different threads happening, in terms of character arcs and storylines and plots. And this is a very Christian thing. So now you can take all of that and you can distort it like you can any art. But I don't think that you have to just. I'm trying to find a better way to communicate it, because I don't want people to think that like, oh, Christian movies are bad. That's not what I'm saying, even though they're bad movies, right? It's more about telling the story and sharing it in a way to where you're not sacrificing the quality of the film, is what I'm really trying to get at.
Yeah.
Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, like, even with there's some movies where I believe it's Signs. That's an amazing movie, and like a Christian movie, but it wasn't meant to be a Christian movie, and it's the storytelling that drives it. And even The Matrix, The Matrix has
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
best gospel
Right.
stories in it, and those people did not mean to make that.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's right.
yeah,
So
I,
it's just super interesting to kind of think about for sure. But as far as I don't know if you were asking me about the second commandment violation stuff or not. To be honest, I don't know what I think.
yeah,
I mean, I'll leave that to smarter men than me. I have issues with The Chosen because of the Mormon influence in it, no
Mhm.
differently than the potential Mormon influence with Nefarious, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Glenn Beck is a Mormon.
Yes.
So yeah, so you have this Christian movie,
Mhm.
and then at the very end you've got Glenn Beck, who's a Mormon. It's like kind of okay, like
Mm.
what are we trying to say here? Are we trying to say Mormons and Christians are the same thing? No, they're not.
No,
So
no.
that we worship different gods. So I don't like the Mormon influence in The Chosen. I don't like that because it's not a gospel that can save.
Yeah.
So
Do you know that 60% of consumers avoid brands with unattractive logos, even if they have good reviews? Well, Resurrection Design Co. helps kingdom minded businesses fix that problem with award winning brand and web design. And right now, they are offering a free, I repeat, free website design or redesign to the first 2 podcast listeners who sign up for a brand identity package. When signing up for a brand identity package, Resurrection will help you design your brand's visual and verbal identity so that you attract your ideal customers, differentiate yourself from your competitors, and strengthen your credibility in the market. Now, this offer is only valid for the first 2 people who sign up this month, so don't wait to visit resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner to claim it. The link is also in the description. RDC has a 100% client satisfaction and a 5 out of 5 Google rating. So don't wait to snag this deal. Head to resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner or visit the link in the description.
Yeah.
that's
And it,
my issue with The Chosen, and some of Dallas Jenkins is. I would love to talk to him. I agree with you. I'd love to sit down and talk. I'd be cordial with him. We may disagree on some things, but I mean that's okay.
Yeah.
But I question some of his comments and stuff in interviews that I'm like, man, that's a little shaky. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I
But
mean, like, even, I'm a big fan of Angel Studios and everything.
mhm.
Even though the founders are Mormon and everything, I think they make great films. They make good original films. Like, I don't know if you saw The Shift.
No, but I've heard about it. I heard it's really good.
Really good. Like,
Yeah.
and Neil McDonough and
Yep.
everything. And
Who I think he's a Catholic.
yeah.
I think he's Catholic.
Yeah.
So,
And then,
but I mean, he stands on his convictions. I mean, that's solid.
yeah, I mean, like, there was a red carpet interview with him for The Shift, and he was like, oh, they were like, why haven't you acted in any movies where, there's nudity or anything, or kissed another woman in a film?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, because that's not right. I
Right.
have a wife. And he was like, but there is a film coming up soon that, it's my first, screen kiss and everything. And he was like, because it's with my actual wife.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the man that's able to stand on that and not be ashamed of that is just great.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you think of a movie that he's been in recently outside of The Shift? And then I think he was in a TV show. But before that, the only movie that I can think of was Walking Tall with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back in what was that, like 2002 or 2005 or something
Yeah.
like that?
And I mean, he was in Minority Report, which was
Oh, that's right.
amazing.
That's right. That's a great movie.
And then he was in the recent Homestead movie and series. I saw the movie and I was like, that was good.
I'll have to check that one out. I haven't seen that one.
Some people didn't like it, but it was interesting. And then like it was the start of this whole series and everything. And then he's releasing another movie in like a couple of weeks, which is great.
Yeah. I just know that he got blackballed, so I couldn't think of any other movies and stuff. He's been around. He's been around.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, but like even you said with, the Mormon influence in The Chosen, and like you have an issue with that. I don't know if you saw, but an article got released recently where Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary, and I think she's a great actor. I would love to sit down with her and chat with her as well. but she in an interview recently came out that she is, this leftist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's like this huge leftist.
Oh, that's shocking. I haven't.
I'm like, wait, why is she playing Mary and the Chosen then? Like
That's wild.
That just seems wrong.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had the thing with the transgender flag, and it just seems odd. Something's off.
Yeah.
The math isn't mathing.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally think that there's some other person in charge of it other than Dallas Jenkins. And
Maybe he's just the face of it.
In order to keep the show running and the funding coming,
Yeah,
this other person's doing these things.
because I mean it's expensive to produce something like that for sure. Maybe you're right.
Maybe.
There might be some good intuition there for sure.
Maybe. I guess we can wait to find out.
Yeah, something. What's the saying? The difference between what's the saying? The difference between conspiracy and reality is like 6 months these days.
Yeah. And so I did want to ask you about something else, is the recent House of David series. I don't know if you've seen any of it.
So I watched like the first 20 minutes of it and I turned it off.
Sure.
It's awful.
So honestly, I wanted to ask you because I didn't watch the first full episode. I started watching it and then I was like, man, I'm kind of bored. I have other things that I need to do.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go do other things. But a bunch of Christians are saying this is amazing and this is good. Like obviously there's some things here and there. And I know Indy Wilson was he worked on some of it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But so what are your thoughts on it? Because a bunch of, there's people that I know that have said, oh, it's not great. And then there's some people I know that they're like, oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty accurate. And then, there's been a bunch of videos released recently that have popped up in my feed. And it's like, is the House of David biblically accurate?
So if I'm gonna stay genuine, I gotta say I haven't watched enough of it to really have an opinion. But from what I've seen, and then from what I've heard from reliable sources, I was actually trying to look this up real quick. It does not follow an accurate. They add all kinds of stuff where something to do here. Let me find this. One of the Goliath threw a spear at David and stabbed him in one of the scenes. My wife and I looked at each other like, I don't remember that happening.
No, yeah, because it was like the first 30 minutes or so of the first episode, and it starts off with this whole battlefield, and Goliath throws his spear and stabs David, and then it goes black and everything. I'm like, wait, what?
Come on, where are you at?
I'm
looking for. So I got on Twitter and I was talking to one of my buddies, Jacob Glass. You guys should go follow him. Oh, come on, where's he at? And we were talking about. Here we go. We were talking about having him on to talk about the House of David. But this is what Jacob says. He says, at the beginning of it, I thought, how nice. At least they put a disclaimer before the episode. And boy, did they really understand, and boy, did they really undersell how much they were about to add to the story. He says, I mean, outside of the names, I don't know what part of it resembles the Bible story at all. Goliath and his giant brothers live with their mom, who is portrayed in a very Greek seer mother of the gods thing. She is hiding her sons because the world doesn't understand them, and Goliath is only helping the Philistines because an assassin killed his mom and blamed Saul. So I told him that I would suffer through it. He said, Hova doesn't kill you. And then we might do an episode on the House of David.
No, it's interesting because at the very beginning, it looked like David died, and then I was like, "Wait, what the like?"
Yeah, David can't die.
David can't die. That is indeed. It's crazy because then honestly, Indy Wilson, if you're watching this, I would love to hear your thoughts of.
Yeah, no kidding. That'd be awesome. That'd be so fun to talk to him about it.
Yeah, it's it's very interesting,
For
to
sure.
say the least. Yeah. No, it's crazy. So any maybe final thoughts, remarks, closing
No,
comments?
man.
Where can people find
You-
out more about you?
Oh, people can find me on Twitter at Real Parker Brown, or X, I guess. I always say Twitter, but it's X.
I think
Facebook, Instagram. You can find us at the WATCHWELL podcast. X is my personal one. WATCHWELL has a Instagram account as well at WATCHWELL Pod, and then the WATCHWELL podcast on everywhere: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you find podcast content. You can check us out there. Subscribe, follow, share episodes, and comment. We want to hear your opinions too. It's not like we want to we really want to cultivate a community of movie buffs, people that love the movies, and we want to hear everybody else's opinions as well. Even if they disagree with us, we want to hear, because the whole point is the movies are the foundation for the conversation that ultimately we want to lead towards Christ, Scripture, and ultimately, Lord willing, salvation for those who don't have it. So that's kind of the idea. And then if you need any video work, product promotionals, podcast editing, anything like that, you can head to vindicatedproductions.com and you can send me an email.
Awesome. So what does the future of the WATCHWELL podcast look like for now?
I don't know. We've got some stuff in the works. We've got a few episodes coming out soon. I think, like I was saying earlier, we got an episode on The Forge coming out, and then we've got a few of the Oscar episodes that we've got to do. I think we're gonna do a Nora. I think we're gonna do some of the other ones, just so that we can stay current with trends and stuff like that. And then we're thinking, we haven't committed to this idea, but I'll let you know here. We're thinking about doing a movie night. I'm not sure where yet. We've got a couple of locations that we're looking at where people could come watch a movie, and then we do a live recording of the podcast on stage at the movie theater. So we're thinking about doing something like that. It'd be like a family-oriented movie, and then you could, come buy a ticket, get some popcorn, and watch the movie, and then we would do some type of engaging podcast recording where we get the audience involved and stuff like that. So we're throwing around ideas, and we think something like that would be a lot of fun.
Definitely. All of your links and WATCHWELL's links will be in the description of the episode. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It was fun.
All right.